think it was it's like it should flash. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're recording now.
I guess we'll find out.
For better or for worse. Okay, everybody, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 14 of Include with Xclude. My guest to the left of me, I met him at the liaison room not too long ago, and I just really needed a break. It was a little bit too hot in there, so I just wanted to step outside. And when I went outside, I wasn't gonna have a smoke, but when I stumbled upon this guy, DJ producer, and he reminds me of myself to a degree. And he's overall chill dude, just like everybody else I've had on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayank Patel.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right, thank you.
Glad to be on here.
But dude, did you go out last night by chance? Everybody was at the Barbary last night.
No, I didn't actually. I had Ashley message me. She was gonna have like a pre sort of get together at her place before heading out. And I actually had a friend over here at my place. We were working on a track, and it was just gonna be a short thing, but we just like got into the zone, and we just kept doing it. So I'm like, I gotta just maximize that session, while
Right.
it lasted. So yeah, so I canceled the going out plan.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
that's fine. I didn't plan to go out actually last night. Well, I didn't really go out, but I just stumbled upon everybody at the Barbary because I had a shift from Amazon. Because I deliver packages, it's like kind of like a side job for Amazon as an independent contractor. And the route that I had to deliver packages to happened to be in Philly. So I was like, let me just stop by the Barbary, see what's up. I'm just hello to familiar faces. Kind of went in and out.
Right.
Yeah, I heard it was jam packed though. I've been seeing some
Yeah.
videos on Instagram from Sam Divine playing last night.
I saw like a couple of messages from one of these groups, and everyone was like, best time ever. They had all these memes of like people just going crazy, and like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
This was me yesterday.
It was all sweaty last night from what I heard just as well.
Yeah. Good
but-
way to start Halloween, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Halloween, it's like, dude, you call me like a rare moment because I'm actually wearing like pants that fit me.
Yeah.
Because I'm usually like for casual, like if I'm kind of dressing up like fancy casual, it's like I wear like, I don't know, like a tie and like a button down, but with like denim jeans. But I'm so used to having, denim jeans that when I finally got a pair of pants that fit, it's like, ooh, okay, I get this now. This is cool. It feels like Halloween because like I never wear the shit that you see me now. But it's cool. I like it, man.
Yeah. That look it definitely suits you. That's the first time I've seen you that formal.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know, without a hat, right?
Without a hat or anything like that. Like, wait, is this him? Like, hey,
it's the same guy. Who is this
he's
guy?
a proper professional here.
Dude, I know, right?
Yeah.
But dude, where did you grow up at, man? How did you come up? Where did you come up from, dude?
So I grew up in East Africa, in Kenya.
Gotcha.
My parents are Indian, so I'm Indian racially. But I grew up in Africa, and so was there until I was 16 years old, and then I moved into the U.S. with my brother, and we went to college here in Oklahoma.
Okay.
University of Oklahoma, and we just ended up staying there. We graduated after 5 years, and then moved all over, for doing odd jobs in the software industry.
Okay.
And just to sum it up, just from Dallas to Boston to Jersey, back to Boston, and then back to Jersey, and then finally here in Philly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I've definitely I haven't traveled to South Africa yet. I'll tell you what though, but
East Africa.
Sorry. And I tell you, I always wanted to be more versed as far as traveling is concerned. Like I've only traveled in like Eastern Europe, but you grew up there. You were born there, so it's a bit of a difference because when you travel, it's like you get to know the place, but it's not like your home turf. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like everything's kind of foreign to you.
Exactly.
But you coming from there is just I would imagine amazing to to a degree. But then you had to go to Oklahoma and study there.
Yeah.
So it was for a reason. You know.
It's a little bit of a shock, but not so much too at the same time, because the town that we grew up in was kind of like a small town, very chilled, very laid back.
Gotcha.
And then so going from there to Oklahoma, which is also like very chilled and laid back, not not kind of like the Northeast or anything like that.
Gotcha.
So it was a little bit of a transition phase, but it wasn't as much as it would have been had we moved to say New York or something.
Gotcha.
That would have been like a big time shock.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I understand. So going into the software industry,
Yeah.
how did you pick up DJing
Well,
and or producing?
so the software industry was just for work. That's just like something we had to do. That's the one industry that was where they had jobs available. But in terms of the DJing and the producing, it's just the DJing came since I was a kid. It was just like you're not really DJing slash mixing per se, but it's just like I'm trying to always find find where the sound system is and just go try and like put on tapes or just
Gotcha.
play music. So that started from like way back, I think when I was like 12 or something like that. So I guess that was always there, but the equipment wasn't available, but the idea was always there. So after moving to the States, I got access to a lot more equipment and access to a lot more music, especially because we didn't have a lot of access that other people did, except like people who travel and then bring back tapes that they recorded on the radio from
Right.
here, and then you find out about this new music. So when I came here, it was just like, whoa, it's like, and Napster was coming up then, so it's like you could just go in and get
Gotcha.
any sort of music
Anything.
you wanted.
Yep.
So that just like, so you just spitball from there, and then that's how the DJing thing took off. And then after some time, you just naturally become curious of how you're playing records, and then you curious about how these records are made. So it just sort of transitioned into finding out how, picking up like 2 or 3 of your favorite records and trying to, rip them apart and figure out how these were made. So it's just like curiosity, basically.
Did you have any musical influences growing up? Like, what do whatever your
No.
friends were playing at the time, or like whatever you listened to on, let's say, the radio, or try to get to?
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
musical influences. Yeah, musical background. No, I thought you meant musical background.
That's
I don't have any of that. But influences definitely like I think the track would probably be Robert Miles' Children track.
Great track.
Yeah, someone had got it from their travels, and it was not even the whole track. It was just a little snippet.
Yeah, a little sample of it.
Yeah, and that piano piece came in, and I was like, well, what is this?
Yeah.
So that's the one that's really kicked everything off. So that was one. Robert Miles was an influence. Enigma. I don't know if you've heard of Enigma, the group from the 90s. They used to do kind of chill out ambient music. So anything that had like soundscapes or like
Atmospheric types of, gotcha.
atmospheric kind of stuff, it always got me. So it could be in any genre, but it just so happened that it used to be a lot more in the electronic, or like in the trance scene.
Yeah, it
you
was
know.
more melodic to a degree. Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, so everything like all that stuff just sort of came together, and yeah, that's basically where the influences came from.
That's great to hear, because like when I came up in the scene, is like each segment of the country kind of had like their own kind of like, there was a sound present. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Detroit had techno, Chicago had house,
Right.
but you coming from like the trance scene, don't get me wrong, that was a thing.
Yeah.
But that was like before my time. Like it was almost like 90s and acid house.
Yeah.
And then trance was like right along the way. Now, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
trance has made a comeback.
Yeah.
But coming from where you're coming from, your origins, it's like that wasn't like a thing back in the day. But you coming from like the Napster world, and
Yeah.
like having all these, having like all a big plethora of tracks,
Yeah.
almost endless amount of tracks for you to select from. It's almost
Yeah.
endless. And you being like tailored towards like that progressive, atmospheric, melodic kind of
Melodic
sound, it's
stuff,
pretty
yeah.
cool. Yeah, because it's like I'm here in Philadelphia now. There's like we have our techno scene.
Yeah.
There's a hip hop rap scene.
Yep.
But hearing you coming from like the trance melodic, progressive scene. It's different, but it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. So and that's what I discussed this with all the people we know. It's like it's sort of a little lacking or kind of weak in that scene,
Ah,
at least in Philly.
Yeah, a
You
little
know,
bit.
It might be there, but so it's. I'm hoping at some point in time we can bring it up to where like how strong techno is, or how strong house is right now.
Yep.
Because I'm sure there's like in the whole city of Philly, there's gonna be a small group that wants that. So
Yeah. Do you know? I'm gonna look him up on Facebook right
Yeah.
now. What's his name? Do you know Jeff Rush? He's a DJ here in local Philadelphia. He likes trance.
yeah,
Like,
actually, I
just
don't
as
know
well.
him
He's a cool dude.
personally. Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I came across his profile, Facebook profile
Mhm.
on just very recently after I think he opened for Marcus Schultz
Yeah, he did.
at Nodo.
Noto. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's how I came across his name, and I was like, okay, that's
Yeah.
nice. It was like refreshing to see that.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool. He's an older gentleman. Him and Robbie Tronco
Okay.
used to play at Club Atlantis, which is in Bethlehem, not too far away from here.
Okay.
Cool dude. But if you want to tag team with him, to make some tracks and or network, just let me know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
for
That'd be good. Yeah.
He's a cool dude. I like him. Do you listen to Eric Prydz? Are you a fan of that guy?
Oh
By
yeah,
chance?
yeah. Eric Prydz, especially his Pryda alias. The stuff that he has, he puts out under Pryda. It's like,
Amazing.
I
shit.
mean, everything he does, even under Eric Prydz, whatever he puts
Mhm.
out, regardless of like whether you like the song or the melody, the level of production this person has. It's unparalleled. Like every single detail in there, there's no way you can miss it. So I think like as a producer, I would keep producing what I do, which is like progressive and trance, but I want to achieve that level of quality in terms of the cleanliness
right,
of the
clean
production.
sound.
Yeah.
It's very like like having your kick drum and your snare and your bass and having them all perform to where you can hear each individual
one,
sound clearly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
understand.
he's a master of that. And not only that, his music is it's excellent, but the shows that he puts out with these
Hollow?
with Hollow and I forget the name of the other one. These
Alex Miles would know. Shout out to Alex Miles.
yeah. Oh yeah,
He
big
goes
big
every
shout
freaking
out.
show.
Big shout out to Alex and Jonathan.
Yeah.
They're both like disciples of
Yeah,
him.
for real.
Yeah.
Oh, a ticket sold out in 15 minutes. I just happened to get like 10
yeah.
for each show, and he's playing next week in New York, and I happen to have those tickets too. Or
Yeah.
whatever. Cool dude.
Oh yep, definitely.
I've always thought about going to those shows, but at the same time, it's like you have to get you have to know when to get those tickets.
Oh
before
yeah.
they sell out like super duper quick. Like I was thinking about going to see him, Eric Prydz, at Mirage when he was in New York, but then like right after, like 2 days after he did his performance at the Mirage, he announced the Hollow show
Yeah.
in New York
Right.
again.
Yep.
Not the Mirage, but I think it was at Madison Square Garden. Don't quote me on that, but it's like Jesus Christ! Like you already got paid for that show and it's sold out, and now you're just gonna put on another one. Like
Well,
that's
the
even
thing is-
better. The Hollow
exactly.
show with like that focuses more on visuals. I'm like Jesus.
Yeah, his fans definitely like won't mind that. Like the more the better. And,
Right.
like he doesn't from what I know of him. It's interesting because he used to have a fear of flying, so he never used to perform as much. He's Swedish or Swiss. I was confused. the two.
Northern European, something
Yeah.
along those lines.
So he would never. There was so much demand for him back then. I'm talking about around maybe 2005, 2006,
Mhm.
when he came up with his when he did his remix for the Pink Floyd song. We don't need no education.
Gotcha.
When that one came out and it just like blew up.
Gotcha.
And I mean, he'd done a lot of stuff before that too, but people wanted him to go play, but he couldn't fly. Like he had a fear of flying. So I don't know how he got over that. Now he's doing all these shows.
Right.
So I'm like, that's really good to see and know that
Right.
somehow we overcame that.
I first came across him in I think it was 2015 when he performed at Ultra in Miami, and it was just a fantastic set. I remember seeing it on YouTube, on Ultra's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
set, and it was just like, wow. I was like, wow, I was floored.
Yep.
It was such a different sound from what everybody else was playing. Was like more EDM, you know, like Don Diablo and Tiesto and
Oh
you know,
yeah,
all these other
that's-
names.
Yeah, yeah.
And don't get me wrong, sometimes I kind of put him in that genre, but I know he's in a league of his own, considering how much money he has made,
Yeah.
and considering, you know, his touring schedule and how fast tickets sell out.
Yep.
And I was listening to he had a podcast on RA, just as well, and he puts out tracks sometimes to where he feels like the audience isn't quite ready. So he has tracks
It's kind of ahead
stored
of his time in a way.
to a degree. He's just like kind of like waiting for the right time to release it, or like still is kind of working on it.
Yep.
Because, you know, as producers, it's like, you know, you can make this track and it doesn't really sound complete for whatever reason, so you just put it in the back of a hard drive and then maybe get back to it later. For
Well,
whatever
either
reason.
that or you go and when if it's not say that big of a show, if you have like a club gig or something,
Yeah.
you would go test it out.
Gotcha.
So you can get like real time
Feedback.
feedback of like what you need to change.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's understandable. Just have you ever felt that way as far as producing tracks? Like,
Oh yeah.
you know, this doesn't really sound complete, or if it is complete, like I'll play it out just to test out in the crowd and see what's up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Actually, that's because you want when you're producing in a very in a very high quality audio environment, right? Either you have really good studio headphones, or you have like a good set of monitor speakers. So when you're done with it, it's gonna sound good because you have the acoustics and everything else figured out. But if you start going out and playing them on like an iPhone headphone, or just go to a club system and play it
Right.
on there, it's not gonna come off as you thought in your
Right.
head. So that's where you need to make it work in the like the worst possible situation,
Mm-hmm.
listening wise. And if it sounds good there, then it's gonna sound good anywhere.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, did production come for you first, or was
No,
DJing first? Okay.
DJing definitely. And I didn't even want to be I didn't even want to do production, but at some point I realized, I was like, it's not like back in the day where it's two different jobs, being a producer and a DJ.
Yep.
These days you have to be a producer
Yep.
first.
You have to be everything.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
But from music perspective only, you have to be a producer. You have to
Yep.
put out your own tracks and DJ. I mean, DJing has become easier too over time with
Mhm.
like all this technology and software and like Tractor, Serato, etc. So almost anybody can just pick it up and do it.
Right.
So how do you set yourself apart?
Right. Now, what was your software choice when you first started DJing?
It's always been Ableton.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never switched from that. It was just because I used to DJ with Ableton.
Gotcha.
So it gave me a lot of familiarity just from a DJing perspective. So switching over to producing using the same software, it wasn't like a shock.
Gotcha.
Like, yeah.
I've dabbled in production
Yeah.
to a degree, but I tried Ableton, but it was a little bit too over my head, so I went to FL,
Okay.
and that felt way more simple.
Yeah.
As far as DJing is concerned, I started out with virtual DJ.
This was
Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah.
actually, if we're going way back then,
Sure, why not?
Then
Why not?
there
If
was
you want
the-
to do it, sure.
there was this program. I don't know if you know. It's called Mix Vibes.
Oh, was that like was it kind of like Scratch Live? No. Okay. It's
This
different.
This was like, it was way before virtual or any one of these programs
Gotcha.
came out. It was just like strictly on the computer.
Okay.
Where like if you wanted to move your any of the controls, you had to use your laptop and your mouse.
Gotcha.
Like there was no external connection to it.
Okay. Wow.
You just do everything
right.
on your computer.
Right.
It's just giving you an interface basically, but there's no like knobs or anything you can go
Right.
tweak.
It's basically your keyboard and your mouse that's on the laptop
Exactly.
itself. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the very first memory I have of like trying to DJ with like the conventional way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I went from virtual DJ.
Mhm.
I began using a laptop as well. I'm just fucking with it,
Uh huh.
and I think soon after that I got a controller, and I think the controller that I was able to use with virtual DJ, I believe was the Pioneer DTJ SR,
Okay.
the first one. But then I realized when I was going out to the DJ cafes as well as hanging out with DJ Biz, DJ Biz taught me kind of the basics, and then I began to go out to like the hip hop DJ cafes. And what I was noticing is that everybody was using a Serato, or like Serato was just coming up at the time.
Right.
And I began to see that. And I was like, man, that software is a lot more, what's the word, more fluid. Like it's a lot more capable.
Yeah, Serato is, right?
Yeah, it's a lot more capable than Virtual DJ, I feel. Some people still use Virtual DJ, and that's fine.
Yeah, but in like a professional setting, if there's anybody who's using any sort of software, hardware configuration, these days it's either going to be Serato or Traktor. Like I think Virtual DJs is still for if you're beginner or right, intermediate.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're going to move to one of these.
Right. For me, I went from Virtual DJ to Record Box, and that was when Record Box was just, and that's like the primary software I use right now for DJing.
Okay.
And it's good because you can easily transition from, your controller to CDJ's standard stuff.
Yes, that is very true. Because before I met anybody over here, I was just like strictly a Traktor DJ.
Gotcha.
And so they offered me a chance to play. Like you can play with Traktor, and I think you were there one time.
I think so. Yeah.
And I brought up my the S4 and everything, and you I think you were asking me like, "What's this for?" I'm like, "Well, I'm opening." Like, "We're gonna play with that?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Because I said that because it seems so small and like light, and I was like, "Wow, what is this? What is this?" It should be heavy and big, and like cumbersome and heavy.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So I wasn't confident enough to like go to play in front of people with CDJs on the CDJs. So but it's like Carlos, who he pushed me, is like, what, leave that controller behind, just go play on this. So I gotta give him a prop on that. Is like, it's the first time I played on that live towards like two other audiences was after party, one of those day jam after parties.
Gotcha.
So and then like it's not like I'll stop DJing with Traktor, but like it's good to know that you can play with both.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, I made the transition going from controller to CDJs because one, it wasn't big of a jump. However, I thought, just by going on YouTube and looking at tutorials on how to use CDJs, that would be it's easy. Yeah. But then I went to Rumor. Back when that was still kicking. I missed that place. Thursdays was the shit. I love that place. And I went there on one Thursday because they had open decks.
Yep.
On Thursdays at some of them, not all of them, but some of them. Mm-hmm. And I remember Ian. Ian was there amongst the DJs that were going to play there.
Okay.
And I brought my laptop. And my buddy DJ Booger, he was there too. And he was wondering like, oh, what is this place? The Rumor. I was like, oh, sure, no problem. And then I was like, I'm going to play there. Yeah, sure. I got my laptop, no problem. But then Ian brought me down there. He was like, yo, you ever played CDJs? I'm like, nah, man. But I looked at all this shit up on YouTube, and I got my laptop with Record Box. I'm fine. Yeah. But you know what happens if you eject your USB, and the music stops. It's like, what do you go do then? It's like, I'll just go slow, no problem. But he was like, he kept drilling me. I'm like, yo, are you sure you know what you're doing? And eventually it came to the point where he was like, you're not going to DJ. Kind of sort of. But I'm glad he did that in retrospect. And shout out to Ian if he's listening now, because it kind of made me who I am, because he told me right then and there, yo, just go find somebody who has CDJs. I'm like, at the time, I'm like, fuck, I don't know anybody who has CDJs.
I mean, because
who's got the money for that?
It's exactly. Those things are not like
they're not cheap.
They're not cheap on any level. It's so everybody wants to play on them, but trying to get anywhere to go and try to practice, that's like a whole different thing. Right.
And usually with the DJ cafes, the hip hop guys, they bring their own. They're bringing controllers. Yeah. Because it's lighter, it's more portable. Yeah. But some of the DJs still bring Pioneer S9 2-channel mixer, the hip hop mixer. Yeah. Yeah. Along with Technics 1200s, the classic setup. Right. And they play with that, and they have fun with that using Serato. Right. It's either one of the two setups, but I have yet to see a DJ cafe, as far as the international DJ cafe is concerned, where they bring a mixer and CDJs, but it's
yeah.
understandable why they don't, because it's not as portable and it's more money. And usually, if you have CDJs, it's like, oh, you have CDJs. Okay, you just let it sit in that one spot in your living room
Yeah.
or one spot in your basement, and just like, you know,
Yeah.
take care of them, you know, and look after them, but they just stay there.
Yeah.
You know.
And also, I think, like, you know, if based on what I've seen, is CDJs is kind of the standard with any sort of electronic music, but like for like regular clubs or regular bars, it could be, you could go use controllers, you can use your laptop, but I think for any sort of gig, small, big, or whatever, the setup is always going to be CDJs.
Yeah, I
You know?
agree. It's always going to be that standard setup.
Yeah.
Not to mention, because I feel with CDJs and a mixer, it's a wide variety of options as far as sound configuration is concerned.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can cater to that one guy who's doing, I don't know, a wedding and just has like a sub pole set up. You know, you can
Exactly.
just connect your master out to whatever you're playing. You know, it could be like a set of JBOs or some EVs, or you can have this monster club set up and have everything hooked up somehow to that mixer. I kind of wonder if that's something. I was like, how is like 4 subs and like 15 speakers and like a line array connected to that one mixer? I always wondered that, but that's super sound guy stuff.
That's
knows.
That's all, you know. That's where I guess physics comes in, you know. So we have to like give a shout out to those
physics
guys
and
for,
trigonometry. And
yeah.
yeah.
It's just like you're just using, you know, serial and parallel processing, whatever they call it, just going.
Maybe some astronomy just as well. They got the stars have to align.
Yeah, that's true too. You know, sometimes they just, you know, go off for some reason. So yeah, you need the stars aligned too.
Yeah, for real. And you know, having that practice comes in just as well, and making sure that, you know, the crowd has a good night. If the crowd has a good night, chances are you're gonna have a good night. And it's like,
in the end, that's what it's about.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's like, as DJs, we have to cater to the audience, but at the same time, bring ourselves into the picture.
You don't want to be miserable either.
Exactly.
Like, so we had a little phase where we're doing like wedding DJs, like you know, wedding, you know, DJing for weddings or like
ceremonies,
birthday parties or whatever, right? And it was, I thought it's gonna be good. I'm like, it's still DJing. I love DJing, but it was the opposite of that, because it was just like, I was waiting for the gig to be over so I can leave.
Right.
I mean, there's no such thing as DJing. I don't even know where they hire DJs. You know, they just want their songs played. They're just requesting, okay, can you play this? Can you play that?
At that point, you're more like a host.
You're not even a host. You're a jukebox, basically, who's just
Gotcha.
Stop and play. That's what you're doing. But I mean, you have to do that. You know, nothing against them, because they're paying you to
be there. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, but as a DJ, you don't feel satisfied doing that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Yep.
I think that's why, you know, most techno and or house DJs are kind of like, you know, we won't take requests. You know, that's always
that's
that
the
floating
thing.
meme.
That's like an unsaid rule. Like, don't approach anybody with like a request. It's just you know, it's a big no.
Right.
You know, let's let them do their thing, and you know, just go with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about this scene. Techno, house, whatever you want to call it. It just electronic in general. No one's gonna come up to you and say, "Hey, can you play so and so?"
Right. I agree. And it's kind of like, if you let the lyrics sink in and you have a few beers, and or you know, go out have a smoke, you just kind of like let the night flow.
Exactly.
And you are gonna hopefully remember that night for being what it is, and being hanging out with your friends and listening to this track, and this track reminded me of this time that I hung out with buddies. You know, it was midnight. You know, it was fucking rocking, and you know, I can't wait to do this shit again. Yeah. You know, kind of sort of, and you know, that's kind of what we strive for.
Exactly.
As you know, promoters, as DJs, as producers, as club owners, as the list goes on.
Yes, exactly.
Down the line.
Yeah.
And that's what we fucking strive for. That's what we, you know,
yeah,
we want to bring to the table.
When you see it all like working right in front of you, like that feeling is, there is no nothing can beat that feeling. When it's like all working out, when you see all those like it's all in sync, when the puzzles are fitting. Yeah. Yeah.
What's your production workflow like when you have, let's say, an idea in your head for a sound, for a specific sound? Yeah. Like, how does that come to you? And how do you put that into Ableton?
So generally, generally when I go to the studio, I have like a rough idea, and as you know, like for me the melody is like key, so I'll have like some sort of a melody or some sort of like a pad sound that I hear, and I know what I want it to sound like. And the first thing I do is I go my go-to synth is Omnisphere. I don't know if you heard of it. It's a Spectrasonics Omnisphere. It's like an amazing synth. And it's just not a synth, it's a synthesizer, sampler, and you can do literally anything with it. And it has this bank of just a collection of all sorts of sounds you can literally imagine. So I know what I hear, and so I know where I go to find something closest to that. And when I find that, then I just like really write it down really quickly before losing that idea.
That thought.
Yeah. And then I'll work everything else around that. So so build the melodic structure first.
Yeah.
And then work around,
That
building the
sound,
drums
that
and
thought.
So it's generally finding the center and then going around it. Now sometimes like if you're doing like a housey or like a more of progressive track, there's melody, but not so much as like a trance record, for example. So it's more groovier. So
Gotcha.
it's more like drum bass, more groove bass.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there, then the idea would be to start with, just like like a 4-bar loop
Right.
of just like a drum pattern.
Yeah.
And then just building on top of that.
Gotcha.
So that would be the opposite: drums, bass, and then you get to the melody,
Gotcha.
if any.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I've dabbled in. I've only have one track to my name, and Hash helped me out with that track, and we were kind of like, we were working with samples. We were working with like some 909 inspired sounds, because at the time I had my TR8 drum machine, and we were just kind of like basing some sounds off that to a degree, but at the same time leaning more into like a melodic type genre.
Yeah.
I still have yet to release the track, but it's like I literally only have that one track to my name, so it's like I really should like kind of get into the mode of producing more.
Yeah.
But my thing is it's like getting your thought from your head to a keyboard is kind of like the hard part for me.
Yeah.
And it's like if you can't remember the sound that's in your head and try to make a track revolving around that, it's very hard to make that into a good track, or you'll struggle I would struggle trying to find that sound, but never really finding it.
Yeah.
And trying to spend time trying to make up for that somehow, but never quite getting it. Because I can relate to I was listening to Resident Advisor Exchange with Nina Kravis. Shout out to Nina Kravis because she's playing.
Oh yeah, tomorrow. Yes.
Tomorrow, that's gonna be fucking epic.
I'm gonna
Like,
try and like
tickets.
take like a something, like just come back, and just somehow make it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, so yeah.
The sound's gonna be the sound at the warehouse. They're gonna have the sound in the middle.
Oh yeah, when Macioplex was there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Macioplex.
I didn't go to Bicep, but
I didn't go to Bicep either.
Oh okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Macioplex was there. They put him in the middle, right?
Yep. I think so. Yeah, that was
Yep.
epic night.
Yep.
But with Nina Kravis, I heard her RA Exchange on RA Exchange. I heard her podcast, and she was discussing like how inspiration is a very fast thing.
It does. She's so right. I mean, that it can disappear within a second. So while it's there, it's fresh. You gotta capture it somehow.
Yep. And it's like usually if I listen to music like very consistently, like I'm at home, I listen to some YouTube, Sorrel or Boiler Room sets. When I'm in the car, I listen to some music. When I'm walking, I listen to music. Whenever music is very consistent and very flowing to the point where it's like water, and like then I come up with like sounds like that. I could be in the shower and be like, "Oh man, that's a cool sound," but I'm in the shower. I'm gonna have to wait to put my towel on, and then go on the keyboard or write it down somehow.
Right.
So it can happen literally anywhere. It's just a matter of translating that somehow to a source that you're going to remember for later on, and putting that drum pattern down or that crazy kind of melody sound that you think nobody's ever heard before, but somebody has. But in your mind,
But in your mind, it's there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, one thing you can do actually is just, you just hum it into your phone. At least like you're going to retain some of that idea.
Gotcha.
You won't have a sound, but you'll have like the general gist of it.
Okay.
That's what I do with my stuff. Like if I'm not around anything
Mm-hmm.
and I get like something popping in my head,
Yeah.
I just like hum it into the phone. It's not going to be in key or anything like that, but you'll
Right.
know the, you'll know the pattern or
Right.
the general idea of it.
You ever, I know you're known for. I'm scrolling your Beatport page,
Oh yeah.
and I like the tracks that you're. What's your latest EP again? What's the name of that?
The latest
Beatport?
EP is called Adrift.
Adrift.
Yeah, it's still it's still not out yet. It's available for pre-order. It's gonna be out on the 29th. So yeah, next like in a
Watch out for
few
that, people.
days.
Get that.
Yeah.
Get it while it's hot. Yeah, but I was scrolling to your Beatport page,
Yeah.
and a lot of progressive house,
Yes.
a lot of melodic type sounds, great stuff. Do you ever think about? Well, you probably already have like branch out to maybe other genres of the electronic realm, like let's say like I don't know, techno or like some more soulful kind of house where there's like a vocal. Have you ever experimented in those genres?
So I haven't experimented into techno or anything like that yet, because I love going to parties that play that.
Yeah.
But it's just not something that I kind of resonate with as much in
Gotcha.
terms
Yeah,
of
that's fine.
just both as a DJ and a producer.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this other alias under which I produce trance music with my trance partner in crime. Her name is Teresa. She's really cool. She's
Shout
an
out.
amazing singer. And she's like a musician all around, great person. And my brother also like he plays the guitar and the piano.
Yeah.
So anything I do with them, I'll put it under. So I'll have my name and then I'll say featuring
Yep.
either Virtue or somebody else, just so people know that it's not my track.
Right.
That's just my like side project.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, in terms of branching, that's what it is. But to answer your original question, there's never a no. You never know. Like you could go somewhere and you hear a track, that's like you said, it could be a mix of like techno and soulful house, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And then you go into into the studio and you're like, I want to do this. So it's never off the table.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was talking. My last podcast was with Pretty Digital.
Oh yes, Bobby. Yeah,
Yeah, Bobby's cool.
I've been trying to reach out to him, but I think he's like busy and all that.
Gotcha. I got his number. I got his. Usually he communicates through Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought he was off. He's not on Facebook, but on
Right.
Instagram
Yep.
he is. Right.
Right.
He's
Cool dude.
Very cool dude. Yeah.
And I did his podcast with him
Yeah.
not too long ago. And he's going into 2 aliases just as well, because his album, the one I think he debuted in 2017. Forgive me, Bobby, if I'm wrong. But the one he did, his last album, was mostly like indie dance
Okay.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And while very eclectic, very cool, he always admired like kind of the harder techno stuff.
Yeah.
And he's gonna develop a second alias, just doing techno, and another alias just doing. I think it's gonna be under Pretty Digital, to where he's just doing like indie dance, more poppy kind of stuff.
Okay. Right.
And he also uses, of course, Ableton just as well.
Yeah.
But he also plays live at the end of the podcast. We did a really cool jam session.
His setup is insane. From what like the least of you were in his studio,
Yeah.
so you actually saw the whole thing. But from just the few pictures that he showed me, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. He knows what's up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And he's got his drum machines lined up.
Yeah.
He traded. I gave him just to use for a little bit my TB3, which is like an acid house kind of like
the 303 sound.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 303 sound. And in exchange, he gave me his chord castellator.
Okay.
I think that's how I pronounce it. Oh, I'm sorry, the chord chaos pad.
Okay.
So it's like an XY kind of like touchpad.
Oh yes. I believe we tried to like mess with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ashley has like the green version. I have the red one.
Oh, so it's not that one, but similar. To
Yeah,
what
it's
they
similar. It's
Okay.
real similar.
have. Gotcha.
They came out like in like, man, when did they come out? I think it was like like in 2010 they came out with that
Uh-huh.
Korg Chaos pad. It's old. It's kind of an old machine in comparison to like Ableton Push. You know, but it still makes some crazy.
But the
kinda
sounds that
sound
come out
effects.
of it, I briefly remember you were like trying to play it.
Yeah.
Couple of weekends ago. I don't
Mhm.
know, but yeah, I was playing some music and you just had it hooked up,
Yeah.
and you just like playing with that XY pad,
Yeah.
and it was just adding this extra element to a fully produced track.
Yeah.
You know, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Right? And just like yeah.
Yeah. And it's like usually whenever I use that shit, it's like, I throw it in like a breakdown to where you can actually hear the sound that's coming from
Yeah.
the machine. Because like if you play, your 303 or Chaos Pad or whatever, but it's like
Yeah.
in the middle of the track where it's like the track is like giving off all this energy. It's like
Right.
the machine's gonna be lost and kind of diluted
Right.
within the meat and like within like the what's the within the very essence of the track,
essence of it.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, at least for me, it's like you kind of have to know when to play it and when not to play it.
Right.
It's almost like it's almost like making a track to where you can't have too many samples, you can't have too many sounds going on, unless it sound like crap.
Yeah, I mean, I think to that point, it would be good to mention to to your listeners that if you are a producer, and you're just starting out, or you want to do it, in the long run, less is more. Like you don't need like 100 tracks to make your track sound
Right.
like professional or big. In fact, it's the opposite. You have to have less tracks and just do more with those, and not just keep piling on. It's gonna be like a sound of mud then, like a
Mhm.
mud sound. So you don't want that. Yeah. So I hope that helps. As a tip.
Quick tip. Now, when did you move to Philadelphia again?
I moved to Philly in the September of 2016,
Okay.
but I hadn't moved yet. Like I
Gotcha.
was, I was doing a flip between here and Jersey.
Gotcha.
So those were the rumor days actually. So it would be like I'd stay, but then I'd have to go back.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
I understand.
I didn't
Fully
get a chance to
understand.
like socialize with people
Gotcha.
that as much. Yeah. So 2016. So like it's gonna be close to 3 years now.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The reason why I bring that up is because like this question is going to be, it's like the question, well, not the question, but it's a reoccurring question that I have to ask
Mhm.
most of my guests
Uh-huh.
and all my guests that have been here on the podcast. It's like, do you ever remember or hearing about this club called Shampoo? Ever heard about that?
No, I know.
That was like the very beginnings of like at least my kind of like club life, nightlife, going to Philadelphia.
No, was it there in 2016, and where was it?
I think it was beginning to shut down. I think in 2016. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But I think it had been there since like, I want to say like the early to late 90s. I forget what time it actually started up. I forget what
Uh-huh.
time it actually was popping, but that was like kind of like the club in Philadelphia for a while.
Okay.
They began spinning like more house kind of tracks.
Okay.
But I got into the scene where they were playing more rap and more hip hop kind of stuff.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. When you got in there, they had all these different rooms where they were playing, anything from hip hop to house. Robbie Trunkel was there and
Mhm.
he was doing his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I miss that place so much.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish it would come back to life again. But it's like that was kind of like the origins of like my
Your
nightlife, going to Philadelphia as well as going into like the gay clubs.
Uh-huh.
Like I Candy and Voyeur and Woody's, which are still popping even right now.
Voyeur's still open,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
days like that
Yeah.
place is always packed.
Yeah, always packed.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit of a different crowd, but like because like I'm seeing more straight people going to Voyeur and kind of exploring
Is
it.
it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very much diverse. I mean, anybody can go in there, no problem.
Right.
But I remember before they did the renovation at Voyeur, when they had hot dogs that you can eat for free downstairs
Uh-huh.
in the basement.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very cool spot. If you get a chance to go check it out. They have the hip hop room, and the main floor is like mainly.
Oh no, I've been
EDM.
there a couple of
Oh, really?
times.
Okay,
Yeah, but
gotcha.
I haven't. I don't know. I didn't see a place that was serving hot dogs.
Oh, that was way back when. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But that was when like downstairs was like had like all this kind of like velvet kind of like decor, red velvet kind of decor, and now it's like they have lasers and it's like all this. It's more fancy. It's more upscale.
Yeah.
But that's fine. And in order to keep the I guess the business going, you kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I know this is the same owner who owns Warrior owns Woody's,
Okay.
so they're owned under the same person.
That's around the same area too, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like right across the street.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but good times there. I always want to kind of like bring that back because it's like
Yeah, those bring like they're nostalgic, right? Because
Yeah.
that's you
Yeah.
somehow got introduced into the scene because of these places, right? So they will always hold like a special place in your heart in one
Right.
way.
They always will.
Yeah.
Now how did going back into Beatport?
Yeah.
When you were first making these tracks, did you ever think they were ever going to get like signed by labels or ever have any kind of interest by anybody
No,
else?
definitely, especially not the very first, very first few. And actually, like if I could go back and give them another version, I
Mhm.
would, because they're good maybe idea wise, but the production is not as good as I've gotten right now.
Gotcha.
But they're out there, So, but no, when I was making them, I had the idea. I was like, I need to make this track, and just share it with as many people as possible.
Gotcha.
So the one way to do that was just to keep it as offer it as a free
Free download. Yeah.
on my SoundCloud page, and which I did. And then through there, I think somebody shared it, and then some label reached out to me and like, hey, we want to sign your track, and I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
With that, I was watching just earlier today. I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm a big fan of that guy.
who's that again?
Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan.
Oh
podcast.
yeah. He has some amazing guests on there, and like they talk about some really,
Yeah.
really, some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I was watching one of his latest episodes where he talked with the Black Keys, and they were discussing like how labels can kind of take control of you, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered, like, when you got signed by that label for that track,
Yeah.
was there any kind of like requirements that the label would have asked from you, like going with that one track, or was it kind of like a small kind of label to where it's like you had a bit more freedom to kind of breathe and
Yeah, so these are all like smaller independent labels.
Okay.
The only thing they ask is like, like the very first track I released was just a one track, and no label will just release just your one track. So if you just have one track, then they're gonna want somebody to remix it and release it as like 3 tracks.
Gotcha.
So you have your original, and you have like couple of other people that have remixed it. Or if you have 2 or more, then they release it as an EP for you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how that works. Like, okay, you have this cool track, and then somebody signs it, but like I never knew kind of the in between.
Yeah.
And by listening to the Black Keys podcast, that kind of like enlightened me.
Yeah.
Granted, the Black Keys, they've sold millions of records, and they've gotten money from their productions.
Yeah.
But I was listening to that podcast, and I'm like, at that scale, it's like, it's a bit different from I guess us house DJs and us electronic DJs to a degree, because it's like they kind of cater to a more mainstream audience.
Yeah.
So it's
well,
like,
I mean, this one, when you go with the bigger labels, then it's
Yeah.
gonna be the same kind of concept.
Gotcha. Okay.
These are all like small, but they still have enough of a reach to put out your track to
Yeah.
people that would have never heard it otherwise.
Gotcha.
But if you go to like the bigger, then they're probably the same.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. Back to what we were saying. But yeah, with have you ever, I was going into how with the smaller labels you have
yeah.
a bit more control,
Mm-hmm.
and how they can kind of, having a small label behind you can kind of lend itself to more kind of creative sound. And
Yeah.
if the label is good with you, they can send that out to all these different
Yeah.
platforms to where people can hear it.
Yeah.
And kind of make it more broad stream
Uh-huh.
to beyond the scope of what we can do as
Exactly.
producers and DJs.
Yeah.
And
So we definitely need them, and the bigger that you get with the label, a lot of the times they'll come in with input that, hey, can you change this? Can
Yeah.
you change that? And sometimes you're like, okay, maybe it makes sense, but most of the times people will be like, no, that was my creative choice to do that.
Gotcha.
So if you have to take that out, then you always
Gotcha.
you'll have to like let go of a little bit of your idea, so
Right.
to speak.
I always wonder that, like, with the smaller labels and us, just beginning to produce tracks and, getting our name out there just as well. I always wonder if labels would ever interfere out of like on a big kind of, I guess, corporate scale. Like if you got signed to like Warner Brothers, like Sony,
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean? It's like they would, your A&R would say something,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's cool, with our smaller house, electronic, labels that we can have that freedom.
Oh yeah, well, that's the thing. Like we're never at that level, because here, even if you go with a big enough label in in the electronic music scene, if they don't like it, they just won't sign it. But if they like it enough and they're like, if you can change this part,
Mm-hmm.
then we can sign it. Like they'll give you the option. But if you, as an artist, decide that I don't want to change it, then you can always approach another label
Yeah.
and have them consider it.
Now, you ever listen to some of your earlier tracks, like some of your first tracks, and then compare it to like,
Yeah, I
the
do.
tracks like your new Drift EP, and like compare, like, man, that doesn't sound like.
Yeah.
I wish I could do better. Jesus, what was I thinking of?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
always like
that's
that
what we were just
progression.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
When you mentioned the Beatport listings that I have,
Mm.
I looked at the earlier releases and I'm like, wow, they're like, they're really not that good.
Yeah.
Production wise,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
idea is there, but I'm like, that's why I wish I could reach out to them, like, hey, give me some time, can I resubmit it? But now they're there, they've sold, they've
Mhm.
done whatever they had to do. You just you keep getting better, and hopefully somebody who's following you can follows you enough to like listen to that and be like, okay, let me just listen to one more and get to the one where he's like, okay, he's improving now.
Right, exactly. Like, how does inspiration come to you in that sense, as far as sound or production? Is it the kind of like, oh, hey, this guy's doing something different, I'm going to try that? Or it's like, I heard this crazy cool sound, it's like that gives you inspiration? Or like you see a piece of art, it's like, oh, that gives me inspiration for like a vision, like to strive for? Like, how does like ideas come to you in that regard?
So it's a combination of things, right? Sometimes ideas will come from just like listening to other types of music. So most of the times I'll be listening to non-electronic music, and you'll get some ideas from there that you think you can bring into the whole progressive space.
Right.
And give it its own like spin on it, right?
Mhm.
Give it like a progressive house spin on it. Sometimes inspiration can come from not art per se, but like watching film, just like having watching something powerful that's on screen,
Right.
and you just turn down the music on it,
Mhm.
and you just start to picture like if you could put music to that
That scene.
what would you do?
Right.
And then taking that further and putting it into like an electronic
Yeah,
track.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And inspiration really, it could come from anywhere. You could just hear one little, sound, or you could just hear like a 4-bar loop playing somewhere in the background that you don't even know. So your ears become accustomed to these things. You're always like looking out, like what's going on. So sometimes that's why you can't enjoy listening to music, because you're not really enjoying listening to it. You're just critiquing, or you're just trying to break it down. You're just trying to understand it too much. So yeah.
I always want well, I'll tell you what, that inspiration,
Yeah,
however
so
you
who's gonna-
however you
you-
find it,
Yeah.
it translates well to when you play. And I saw you at a day jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that same night, I've heard that Daniel Avery was playing at the Warehouse on Watts. But then
Oh,
you were
yes.
like, yo, stay around, because like it was super
Oh
tempting.
yes,
yeah,
yes,
it was
yes,
super
yes.
tempting to kind of like leave early just to see Daniel Avery, which I eventually did. But I was like, the afters, with Junin was starting to wind down.
Yeah.
And you were all sitting up downstairs at Golf and Social.
Yeah.
And I was like, they had the couches out and shit. And I was like,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
I was like I was really kind of feeling it to the point where I just had to chill.
Yeah.
And the couches, the leather couches, they aren't there downstairs, and the red lighting, the ambiance was like, okay, it was like kind of like chill
Yeah.
for a little bit before you went on.
Yeah.
And you rocked it. It was very, very, very cool, man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
thanks. Yeah,
yeah.
I do remember that. I was I think they double they put two parties together, Saunderson and Daniel Avery, right?
Yeah, like 2 days before.
2 days before.
So
right?
it was
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, it's like everybody's at fucking Warehouse on Watts. It's like, man, it's like a double header.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it was super tempting to go.
Yeah, so I actually appreciate you staying back.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's
it was cool.
That's
a long night.
that's too big of a competition for like a like a sort of like a nobody
Yeah.
DJ in Philly, like going against these guys.
It's
you know,
like,
but
but it's a good and a bad thing, because we have all this great talent coming to the city, and
Yeah.
kind of like recognizing our potential as much as New York and LA and
Yeah.
Berlin. The list goes on.
yeah,
But we're becoming more recognized in the scene, which is very, very cool. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, there's too much to do in one fucking night or one fucking weekend. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I gotta pick and choose now. Or like set times. Okay, I'll spend like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and then I go eat something, and then I go smoke
Yeah.
something, and then I go to this afters for like the rest of the night. It's like,
so for the
yeah.
clubber, it's actually good. So they have a lot of choices, right?
Yes.
But for the artists, you're like, oh, you know,
Right.
you're like, wow, how do you? It's difficult to make a mark then. But
It
I
is,
mean,
but
it's a sign of a healthy,
Healthy
a healthy
scene.
scene.
Yeah. But as long as you keep doing what you're doing and you keep being consistent
Yeah.
with whatever production or whatever you have going on,
Yeah.
and you're able to put that out there,
Yeah.
people will recognize that.
Yeah.
And if you keep doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
I feel you'll go a long way.
Yeah.
mean,
Thanks for
sincere-
saying that.
sincerely.
I hope so.
Yeah, because I feel like when I first talked to you at Liaison Room,
Yeah.
I forget who was playing that night. Shit, it was like some kind of.
Well, that was
who was playing that night? I don't fucking remember. But it was a good night regardless, and I feel like you kind of have the same kind of like
Dan
mindset.
Pham was there. Shout out to Dan Pham.
Dan Pham.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out to that
he was
dude.
there. He rocked it that night. I think Mike Sullivan was also playing.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember the event name.
Oh, I forget the name of the.
Yeah.
I remember the names. Actually, Bobby was supposed to play too, but I think there's some technical issues.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. It was the Jesus Christ! It was the live set event. I'm trying to think of
Yeah,
it.
the name's like.
The name.
like,
Watch after this podcast is
it's
done.
gonna-
I'm
it's
gonna
gonna-
remember the name in the middle
Right
of the
away.
car right away.
Exactly.
Like, damn, that was the
Yep,
name of it.
That's the one. Yep.
Yep. But I'm like, as soon as I stepped outside and saw you, and we had a bit of a discussion about like music in general, and it
Yeah.
was just like, okay, you have the same mindset as me,
Yeah.
but you know how to put it more forward than me as far as production is concerned, and
Yeah.
just keep striving for what you're doing and
Yeah.
be you, and I'm sure you'll go far just as well. I mean that, man.
Yeah. Thanks. I
no
really
problem.
appreciate that.
Now I was scrolling through your Facebook as I do
Yeah.
with many of these podcasts, just to kind of like dig up some information.
Okay.
I kind of have a basis on kind of like
Yeah.
what you're going for, and like what you put out there. Are you a runner? Do you play any sports?
Well, I play soccer. I used to until I injured my foot, so I don't. I'm like taking it slow right
Yeah.
now. And then I bike for the most part, like around the city
yeah,
and
okay.
everything. And occasionally I'll go swimming.
Okay.
That's about it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Because I see on your on Facebook here this marathon runner who went on the 2-hour mark.
Oh yeah, that's a Kenyan marathon runner.
Yeah.
That's what we're known for. We as in,
Gotcha.
I say we, but like we're the Indian Kenyans.
Gotcha.
They're like the they're
Yep.
the real athletes. for our country. And yeah, so it's just good to see somebody achieving like something,
Yeah,
something
at
so
that height.
monumental.
Yeah. But it's like for sport, it's like, as time goes on and as generations follow us, it's like they're only going to get more faster and stronger too,
Yeah.
because of genetics and because of the array of medicine and the array of
Yeah.
staff and the array of like research that we've derived from everything else that we have now.
That's true.
So it's like it's just kind of that heredity, I feel, is going to get better and more tailored with time, for as long as we have good coaches kind of guiding our future
That's true,
sports
but
stars.
That's true, but also like the certain genetics of certain human beings, like you just can't compete with that. Like the video that you were seeing,
Yeah.
they don't have the access, a lot of the
Oh
resources
no, at that
we
level,
do,
yeah.
but they're still outshining all the athletes that do have that, every single thing that they require, and they're still beating them. Not beating them in a bad way, but they're still winning.
Right.
So there's just something naturally that they have, which is like nobody can explain it, but it's just there.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
you have that perseverance, but that I feel that perseverance and drive totally helps. Don't get me wrong, but having that support
Yeah.
and having that team behind you, whether it be a sponsor, whether it be a fellow teammate, whether it be a friend, however it benefits you
Yeah.
in regards to a time or a score
Yeah.
or a statistic, that's very, very much beneficial, and kind of
Yeah.
it deviates like the amateurs from the professionals
Yeah. Yeah.
to a degree.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, speaking of like DJing and like playing out,
Yeah.
are you playing anywhere? Like, do you have? anything
I have
like? Well,
one.
I know we have the
I have,
Philly.
the family
before
affair.
things. Yeah.
That's on the 27th at the liaison room. I'm going to be playing upstairs with Dan Fam just as well as myself. I think we're going to do kind of like a back-to-back set,
Okay.
as well as with Ryan, Mark, and I forget one other person that's there. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot for, but I'll be there. I'll be there playing upstairs on the liaison room with the function one system. So that's going to be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other than that, I don't, as of right now, I don't really play out too much.
Okay.
Would
you want to?
Oh yeah, for sure, for
Okay.
sure. Like I played out before, but for I guess like everybody has their time,
Yeah.
and it's like I feel going into 2020, it's going to be more common for me to play out,
Okay.
and I'm kind of, I don't have like the maximum amount of friends you can have on Facebook is 5,000.
Okay.
And, the maximum amount of friends on Instagram is like, God knows how much, like it's over 1 million something, well, friends or followers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I'm very much more organic. Like I want to see you and meet you and get to talk to you.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more slower, but it's a lot more real. And lately I've been friending like at least one person a day, on and
Right.
off on Facebook. So that's become like a signal to me that's like, hey, you're, making, you're making strides, and people getting to know you
Yeah.
for who you are. And I think that's very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
And I'm much looking forward to 2020 as opposed to
Yeah.
2019. I mean, in 2019 I got myself into debt. I got laid off. I
Yeah.
had to go to school. But when I left school, I got a job, but then, got laid off from that job. But now I just recently acquired a new job, which I start next week.
Uh-huh.
So fingers crossed, and hopefully that
Oh,
lasts
nice.
a little bit. Thanks,
Congratulations.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. But, financially, 2019 has been like, it's definitely not the best. And I got to work on the car still and,
Right.
among other things. But friend-wise, relationship-wise,
Yeah.
it's been pretty what's the word? It's been plentiful
Yeah.
in a good way, because I'm meeting all these people, and I'm shaking people's hands. I'm hugging people. I'm saying, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm hanging out with them on a pretty consistent basis. Whether it be at the Barbary or some random warehouse or at the bar, whatever.
Yeah, wherever you go,
yeah,
like,
or
you
some
like, oh, they
rooftop
see
bar.
you,
Yeah,
they recognize you.
yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah.
Like
That feeling is like nice.
it's fucking welcoming.
Yeah.
And it's like, in this day and age, it's like we kind of need it, because what I'm
definitely.
seeing more and more. It's like, you know, you have an idea in your head about whatever, but it's like you're
Yeah.
very self-aware and self-critical of yourself, and I'm very much the same way. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning off that, which is great. You know, to have this kind of network of people that really are in the same boat, and they understand
It's-
kind of
yeah.
like the perils of just kind of like being alone in a room
Yep.
and being very self-critical about
Mhm.
anything. You know, it could be one track, it could be, you know, it could be schoolwork, it could be fucking, it could be anything.
Yep.
You know, but it's like you have to put that pressure off of yourself,
Yep.
and it's sometimes very hard to do that. You know, but as long as you know, say hi and have that relationship and that constant stream of thought, you know, that dialect going between a group of people or just
Yep.
somebody else, you know, you can offset that burden for whatever reason and, you know, move forward and, you know, have
Yeah.
fun and be not so serious.
Exactly. And to add to that point, it's, you know, the house, techno, whatever you want to call it, like, or, you know, this music scene, it, whichever event that you go to, on some level you're going to find somebody on the similar frequency as you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's easier to, like, you know, meet, you know, like you can go and just, it's as opposed to, like, say you just go to a regular bar or something,
Right.
and you try to talk to random people, it's just awkward.
Right.
You know, and when you try to do the same thing when you go to, like, an event and you don't know anybody, but you're there, just everybody's there for that same reason, right? To experience the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, that music, you know, the atmosphere, that vibe. So you can really meet a lot of people, and, you know, you'll relate to most of them.
Yeah.
You know, you won't find anybody who's just like, oh, you know.
Right.
For the most part, everyone's cool.
Yeah.
Everyone's chill.
And sometimes I will say, when I went to the basement, I went to Basement, New York.
Uh-huh.
You know, at least recently I've been going to New York and kind of exploring that scene.
Uh-huh.
Well, I went to Basement, New York,
Uh-huh.
and, you know, had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Tried X for the first time,
Uh-huh.
and you know, I felt that kind of experience. And
Yeah.
then when I went to the Mirage, I did the same thing.
Oh,
And like
that's like, yeah.
I'm kind of like
Totally.
developing a sense for, you know, stuff that's beyond, like, you know, blunts and drinking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kind of the more, I don't want to say harder drugs, but it's like, you know, that's kind of a thing where it's like, at least for me, it's like whenever it's like everything's popping off, it's a great concert, you know, or
Uh-huh.
whatever, you know, your favorite band or your favorite artist is on stage. It's like you kind of want to elevate that to something more.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, using those types of drugs can, like, kind of elevate you, put you in kind of a
Yeah.
mind space to where it's like you can either elevate you or, you know, put you down or make you kind of go into a certain mood.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm seeing that more and more,
Uh-huh.
and for better or for worse. And, you know, lately, there's in the news recently with like ketamine specifically. It's like
Mhm.
that's, you know, I haven't yet to try it because I'm kind of afraid of it,
Mhm.
because of, you know, from what I hear in the news, it's like, you know, they're including more like fentanyl, you know, which is like, it's pretty.
It sounds
it's
dangerous.
It is dangerous, and, you know, in our scene, it's slowly spreading, but it's like we have to become aware of the potential consequences, you know, because some
Yeah.
people have, you know, unfortunately passed away from this stuff. But if we know, we keep our head up and at least be aware, and or even better, have test strips, you know,
Yeah.
regarding this stuff. It's like, you know, if you choose to use it for whatever reason, you know, at least we're safe in that regard. And that's lately what I've been seeing in the scene.
Well, so personally, I don't do any, like,
Yeah.
any drugs. I just, you know, my only form of like, you know, consumption to, you know, to sort of let loose is just alcohol.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you know, relating to that music, I totally get that. Like, you where if you're really feeling a particular song or a set and you find that right combination of that stimulant,
Yeah.
it can really amplify that
Yeah.
good feeling. But on the other hand, like if you really are into it for the music, then you shouldn't need any of that.
Exactly.
You see?
I don't want to say it's a double-edged sword, because I feel if you're very tolerant of it, you have control over it, you'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're kind of like, if you're in that K-hole a little too long, it's like, fuck,
Well, a lot of this
You know?
stuff, like they
Yeah.
have more control over you, from what I've heard at
Yeah.
least, right? But to each their own. Like these, the good thing with this scene that we have is like nobody like judges anybody based on what they do, or
Yeah.
like chooses how to have their fun. But for longevity, I think the less of the stuff that
Yeah.
you do, the better.
Yeah.
Like
I agree.
so if you look at all the big names, right, they've been able to survive and sustain for so long because of like
Yep. Because of that consistency, because of that discipline, because of what's on
Yeah.
the line. I have a tour date. I can't exactly be doing this and that, because there's so much, there's
Yeah.
limited time available.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
when you look at I met Fiyak at
Oh,
the
yeah,
Mirage,
yeah.
which is super duper dope.
Uh-huh.
I gotta tell a story. I did explain that I did see him at Mirage, but I didn't tell how.
Uh-huh.
But after I met them, which I'll go into detail after I say this,
Mhm.
they actually smoke a lot of weed. Dude, go on their fucking Instagram,
Yeah.
and it's like you type in Fiyak, and it's like
Yeah.
maybe if I can pull up a quick picture on my phone.
Yeah.
They have they have a funny ass like Instagram account, and it's like them mostly like smoking. There we go. Literally like
Yeah.
boom, that's Fiyak right there.
Oh, nice.
It's on the beach. It's like they're doing it up. They got the big ass joint in their mouth. It's cool as shit.
Nice.
But it's like I've always kind of wondered about that, like how stimulants and kind of like how hallucinogenics can follow music
Yeah.
in that regard.
Yeah.
I always wondered about that. I'm kind of like just experimenting, like I'm kind of experimenting it.
Well,
See,
so I think like marijuana per se wouldn't even count as like.
I guess in these days now,
like,
I guess not.
Because I think it's even. I
As odd
don't
as that
do it, but
is.
it's actually like it's probably would be better to do that than even drinking alcohol.
Yeah, it is.
What,
Yeah,
what,
it
what
is,
we're
actually.
talking about is like the whole class, whatever they call them, class A, class B, or whatever.
I get you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's different standards.
Yeah, those are the ones that are, it could go either way. But weed, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I agree.
It's like,
I agree. I mean, it's it's medicinal.
yeah,
It can you can use it recreationally just as well, and it's becoming more mainstream, for goodness sake. I mean, I think here in Philadelphia, actually, I know you can get medical cards for weed.
yeah,
Just as well. I know we're in Cali and
Yeah,
over in
yeah.
Colorado, it's recreational
yeah,
just as well. So it's like becoming almost like alcohol,
Yeah.
I guess you could say in that sense, but not as harmful,
yeah,
thankfully.
exactly. This is actually more harmful.
Yeah, oddly enough, even though it is legal and even though it's readily available,
Yeah, yeah.
I always wondered about that. But
Yeah.
I'm treading that, and I guess just playing around with it. That's
Yeah.
really about it. Let's see what else. Let's see. Oh, dude, do you have any plans going into tonight or going to the weekend by chance?
Well, tonight, remember before we actually started this, I was gonna just like, I've been having these production sessions, and I haven't made a mix in a while. So
Gotcha.
I was gonna have like do one of those long 2-3 hour mixes.
How does
and
how does that work? Like I know the 2-3 hour mixes, but it's cool. But it's like
yeah,
I feel as a listener, it's like, man, 3 hours. Fuck, it's like
well,
it's a long time. Kind of sort of.
Well, but like if you go to a gig, a concert or something, right?
Right.
You're listening to stuff for more than 3 hours
Yes.
in a way, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is actually it's easier because when you're making it, you're hearing it live yourself. So it's easier to just keep going and going.
Gotcha.
So that's what I was planning to do, but then you saw the one of the downfalls of doing like digital DJing. The controller doesn't come on because like a Windows update fucked up your last configuration setting. Yeah. So, but tomorrow,
just press the restart button. You'll be
yeah, like try it, like turning it off and on
yeah,
again.
Yeah, there you go.
It should be good to go then, right?
100%. Yep.
No, but other than that, I'm like just like you said, I'm not looking. I hope I don't end up at Subsurface or something like that.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna try and make it early tomorrow to see Nina Kravitz.
Gotcha.
And hopefully, I'm sure I'm gonna see you over there.
Yeah.
And then we'll see where it goes. Maybe
Yeah.
you'll like reveal the secret location of the after party.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless, there's always going to be thankfully a party scene here in Philadelphia. So if you miss the next party, there's always going to be the party after that.
That's
To a degree.
We were just
and or
talking
you can
about
make or these days, you can make your own freaking parties as long as you have an apartment. At
Yeah.
the very least, or a warehouse, or a
But
space.
If you have people, that's the thing. You need to have the
I
people to
guess
come.
that's cool.
You enjoy that. I've done enough bedroom DJing to know that I love it. Like you're in your own space. But sometimes you've got that song. You got that. You've just mixed it right with another track, or you've done something special.
Yeah.
And no one else has heard it except you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, God, I wish there was just even one person here
Right.
to like have heard that.
You ever DJ on Facebook Live? You ever done that?
Yeah.
You ever done? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done it, but it's like I feel like at that point it's like you're kind of desperate. Do you really want to play out there? And as much as everybody would like to see that, but it's like when you're doing it on Facebook, it's like, oh man, you're playing live to like 2-3 people on your feed. Like right now, it's like
I
it's
know,
cool,
like,
and then the Facebook might take it down.
I know, like, when you see those low numbers, I'm like, sometimes it sort of discourages you a little bit. But I'm also, at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, I'd rather give people like an audio visual experience rather than just like have them hear just sound.
Right.
And, the more I can do to actually show them as close as possible the entire process of how that entire mix or that set came about, the real, I guess, the for the lack of a better word, the nerds, the real people who are like really looking, they will be able to tell things apart.
Gotcha.
And hopefully give you some sort of credit for that.
Yeah. And it's like with this podcast, even like I've been thinking about going, without. I've been thinking about including a camera just as well, but I feel that's a little bit more to edit. And depending on the day, that person who I'm interviewing may or may not want to see themselves like on camera. But I know that's just more entertaining. And with podcasts these days, that's becoming like, I don't want to say mandatory because you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Because I feel the audio is the more important thing.
Yeah.
But having that kind of audio visual experience is kind of like, it's progressing to the point where it's like it's becoming a standard. Like, oh, you have a podcast but you don't film it, you don't put video to it. It's kind of like, oh, really? Okay.
They people want to be able to see the interviewer and the interviewee. So somehow it's just like, I think it's like a psychology thing where people can relate a lot better to stuff they can see.
Yeah, somehow.
Versus just hear.
I guess, yeah. I guess, in that regard, it's like, indeed, now just as well, it's like, you go to any event, you got to have some kind of visuals. You got to have a VJ. You got to have like your logo in the background somehow. You got to have some kind of visual playing in the background that kind of relates to the track end or the kind of the vibe of what everybody's feeling and or what the vibe of what the next couple songs are going to be and have that kind of flow.
Exactly.
But I feel that's, at its core, it's kind of like, you only really need the audio and some imagination.
Yeah.
But I completely understand for these high-end productions, it's like, oh, I paid $60 for this ticket. Oh, I paid $200 for this ticket. I want,
you want
all that.
And most of the people that will come there, they won't be as critical listeners or like audio music heads like you and I are. They're there just for an experience.
Right.
They're not there to like really pick down like, oh, what song is he playing? How is he mixing? They want the the entire experience, like
Right.
summed together.
Yep.
So you can't just sell it with like, oh, I had a really good I had a really good set.
Right.
I had some really good tracks. They don't care about that as much as like the entire
Showcase.
showcase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to Richie Houghton at the Apple Store. He did a master class.
I
It
saw
was
that.
on Facebook.
I
Yeah.
saw that. Yeah.
And he was discussing kind of like the visual side of his performances.
Yep.
And he was talking about like how if you have a performance that's kind of like really mostly based on visuals,
Mm-hmm.
you have to plan your tracks like way in advance, because at that point you're very much leaning on the visuals to give off the vibe rather than the music.
I didn't
Something in
read
that
it that
regard.
way. I didn't read it that way. He was saying, in my opinion, he was saying the opposite. What he was saying was the setup that he has it that way so that he can really, really break down tracks.
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
to a point where someone cannot even recognize the original track.
Mhm.
And the visuals are there so that people can see as much as possible in real time what he's doing.
No, that's 100% true. But
Yeah.
he was saying like for any given performance,
Yeah.
not specifically his for
Okay.
close.
Uh-huh.
But like if you throw out too many visuals out there,
Uh-huh.
that like the performance is going to be relied on the visuals, and you have to play that way in advance. But with close,
Yeah.
close
Close is different.
is way different.
Yeah, right.
Close combined is very different.
Yeah.
It's like the visuals are based on his flow,
Yeah.
and using, I forget what software that he was using, but
they have like custom design
yeah,
software for him.
I mean his
That's- yeah.
team has been with him for 10 years, so
Yeah.
he knows the deal, and his team knows
Yeah.
what's up. But it's very based on like his flow and how he's
Yeah.
interpreting the music right now in the moment, and giving that, that very much that one and only sound experience with you live
Yeah.
in front of a crowd, and you're never going to hear that again
Yep.
just as well.
Yeah.
And having those visuals in time to what he's doing is very kind of
That's-
fast, and having that flow,
Yeah.
and to the point where it's not very, there's the emphasis is on visuals to a degree, but it's very much based on what's happening right now,
Yeah.
and having that connection with the music right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, in the moment.
Yeah. So I think to your last point, maybe sometimes like if you, in the way I foresee it is like, or the way I see it is, you maybe have to like overdo or like do the visuals more than you would normally if the performance of the DJ or the artist is like subpar. So you
Gotcha.
So you give the audience little, you overwhelm them a little bit just
Yeah.
with visuals, so
Yeah.
they don't have enough time to focus on like
Right.
how bad this guy is playing.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what
I
I mean?
understand. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to the point where like I'm throwing pies at people like Stevie
Yeah.
Aoki.
Yeah.
It's kind of like funny as that is. It's like,
Yeah,
really?
see, this is the thing. It somehow it works. It sells. People are buying this.
Yeah.
right. He's selling out arenas, doing this kind of stuff. It's something that I don't think anyone in the techno scene would do. Not even techno, progressive house, trance. Nobody would do that. I think that's more of a commercial EDM sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is it's there. It's weird, but people are like eating it up.
Yeah.
And
Those people are going out to those events, to the more EDM account events. I guess like it's like Tiesto.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Swedish House Mafia back in the day. Even though I think they were super duper cool.
Yeah.
I guess you could put Layback Luke in that genre, even though he came from a techno background.
Yeah, but Layback Luke still does those
to a
techno
degree.
tracks.
Yes, he
techno
does.
sets.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
I saw him.
Occasionally.
I saw him at Rumor.
Yeah.
At,
He
he's
does, right?
techno-
Yeah. I didn't go to that one, but I
it's
know
cool.
like one
Yeah,
day.
it's cool.
Because he does those vlogs, right?
Yeah,
like,
on
the Friday
YouTube.
vlog on YouTube.
Yep, awesome.
And that one I saw, I'm like, hey, I just
Awesome
landed in
shit.
Philly. I'm like, oh shit,
Oh,
I'm not
no,
here
son.
this weekend. Yeah. Yeah. So he whatever music he plays, he's a true DJ though. He knows he can like
Yeah.
he's mastered that craft till whatever it has to
Yeah.
offer.
Shout out to Layback. Like, you're the man. You're cool.
Yeah.
I got my autograph from you. You're cool as shit.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, he kind of grew out of the techno scene because it was kind of stagnant as far as just the structure of it. Because it's very much a 4/4 beat. You know, it's no really vocals. You know, it's based on a kick drum to a degree and a bass line. You know, it's very kind of minimal in that sense, and it's kind of hard to branch out in a techno scene in that sense when you have very few elements to work with in the beginning. Because that's inherently what is techno to a degree. Yeah. But if you can somehow find that edge, you'll become big in that scene. Yeah. But Layback Lou had to branch out because it became kind of boring to him. Yeah. Which is completely understandable.
Yeah. Well, that's the same reason Tiesto got out of trance. That's what he said too. Is like it's becoming too, it's too stagnant. And you have to you have to see the trends, like what are people listening to these days. You can't stick to like, this is the real stuff. I know this. I grew up in this, and like if you do anything outside of that, you've sold out. Right. A lot of people will say that, but in the grand scheme of things, these guys are like, okay, you can think what you want, but they've like achieved 50 times as much success as opposed to when they started.
Yeah, and granted, it might take them a little while to get back to where they were. Yeah. Before they made that switch. Yeah. But once they found themselves, it was game on. Yeah. And everybody recognized that just as well. Yeah.
But I don't think like if I had the choice, I don't think I'd ever do that. Like it's,
make a switch to whatever genre.
No, yeah, like the biggest switch that I would ever do is probably go back to trance, but the original old school trance. But that's about it. Like I would never go like commercial. Gotcha. Figure out what the young kids want and make that track. That's just I've tried it. Yeah, it's not like I haven't. I have tried it, and as a producer, I think it's like very easy to make. It's not that complicated. Is compared to like techno or progressive house or something. There are not a lot of layers. Gotcha. Yeah.
You ever thought about playing live? Maybe by chance, maybe like live progressive house, like using like a Ableton along with Ableton push, maybe like a a drum machine and maybe like a synthesizer.
Well, that's what I do in my. So I have a radio show. It's called Progressive Sessions. I don't know if you look that up. So when I record these, it's like a bi-weekly radio show that's broadcast on an online radio station called DI.FM. And when I record those episodes, it's kind of live. So in that scenario, I have Tractor running, and then I have Ableton running together. Gotcha. And on Ableton, I have like about 16 tracks. Each one like has its own, one for say piano, one for arps, one for pads, and then one just dedicated towards a drum machine. Gotcha. So that one, it's like gives you the flexibility to like remix stuff on the fly. Yeah. But in terms of live, it's actually very easy now, because if you're producing, then what going backwards is kind of easier. As long as you have the that setup, you don't need like when you're producing, you need like 50 tracks just to make one track. Yep. In a live setting, you just have like 4 or 5, and you're just working with those.
Yeah, you're just working with those.
So I definitely want to do that. That's I'm glad you asked that question, and that's one of the goes back to what we initially said. How do you set yourself apart? You can't just be like, oh, I DJ. Yeah. Right. I have everybody's a self-proclaimed expert. They're like, I have the best collection. I know how. You can't even say you know how to mix better than somebody else, because that's just one way of doing it. Right. So everyone thinks either overtly or internally that their collection is like the best. So one way to set yourself apart is play live, and given the opportunity, that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. And I'm seeing that more and more being more common. Like I'm seeing like all these live sets on Sorrel. Yeah. With Acid Poly and Fiac. Yeah. And Kink. Yeah. And all those names to where they're performing live, and it's very much like Richie Horn's been doing it forever, Yeah. And they're becoming more sporadic with sound. Yeah. And or in different ways. Yeah. To the point where it's like you're never gonna hear that track again, which I think is super duper cool. Yeah. And among other artists, I think that's something that's progressing within the electronic music circles. Now, granted, I was talking with Hesh, and he was like, "That's awesome," but as far as setting that up in a club environment, it's a bit more tricky because you have to adjust each level accordingly.
Yeah.
Like you have to adjust, your volume on these 3 instruments.
Yeah.
And you can't have your levels.
Careful pre-planning. That's what it requires. And like also the other thing with this is you're relying very heavily on, a computer, which could go haywire anytime.
Potentially, yeah.
You see? So, but you have to take that chance. Like, if you really want to, like, creatively express yourself at that level, then you have to, like, you have to put in that extra effort, like, as opposed to showing up with the USB and just start playing.
Right. As cool as it is just to do that, and back in the late 90s and early 80s, when the heyday of just becoming a DJ was cool. It was things were a lot more simple. Yeah. You could just be a cool DJ with skill. Yeah. And just be well known for that. Like Jazzy Jeff.
Yep.
It
still required a lot of skill.
It still
to do
does.
What they did.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And having a computer in front of you wasn't the thing. You had to go to your local record shop, scrounge around, see what was up, talk to people. Yeah. And you kind of you didn't have to be everything at one time. You didn't have to be your own
you could
promoter.
Just focus and like choose that and like this is my art, this is my way of expressing myself. I'm gonna focus on this. This is why these days quality has sort of gone down, right? Because even as a producer, you're required to put out X amount of tracks. Yep. Otherwise, you sort of disappear off the map. You see? Right. So
even though if you disappear off the map, it's like that's a good thing. Because you develop all this kind of like inspiration. It's kind of like the Black Keys. They separated for like 4 years more. Before they got back together. And as soon as they got back together, I think Pat and Dan, I believe the names of the members. But it's like when they got back together, that first track off their latest album was just like easy. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can hear the snap on fingers to the mic. But it was very snappy. It was very quick. Right. And that's what made the album, and having that what's the word? That inspiration and having that that character is like and having that chemistry. Is so vital. That's true. If you keep touring, if you keep putting yourself out there, you eventually you're going to put it in this hole to where you're again you're self criticizing yourself, but not having anybody else's input, and you're thinking too deeply into yourself.
That's true. That's very true. And like also if you've learned all this stuff in from back in the day, having to do it in today's environment would be like a piece of cake for you.
I guess you could say that.
I'm talking like in terms of like producing, where you had to go, get this like huge mixing boards and like really go and if like right now if you just want to put a kick drum together, like a kick beat, you just go in Ableton, whatever.
Yeah, boom.
Just boom, done.
Yeah,
right.
I got you.
There, like you would have to find somebody who's gonna play, and, like you
right. Yeah. It was a lot more labor intensive. Like if back then it took like maybe if you want a certain kick drum, it took maybe two people, maybe one person with like a recorder, and you actually making that beat and making sure that beat was on point to that whatever BPM you wanted to achieve. Exactly. But now it's just like, set 126 BPM on Ableton, and here's your kick drum, and just do a loop, and hey, that's your bass line.
Yeah. So imagine if you tell that guy that, don't worry about spending 2 days on that.
Oh,
here,
what?
It's done.
Get out of here.
So imagine like how fast they can like.
Yeah. How fast you can produce a track now versus back then. Now, if you're quick with it, you could do a track in under 4 hours or maybe in an hour or so. If you know what you're doing. Yep. As opposed to back then, it took a while longer. It took a studio.
Oh yeah.
It took a room.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah, it was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of miss those days, I guess. But whatever. We're here in the moment now.
Yeah.
Do you have any physical records that you own?
No, I don't. I unfortunately never got a chance to DJ on vinyl.
Gotcha.
Or like even do any
Same.
record
I got
collection.
yet to do that too.
Yeah. I mean, I could have. See, the thing is, again, that's just going back to Oklahoma. There was no place to go, like, like record hunting,
Yeah.
right? So I would look for them, but when there's no place, and then you couple it with the fact that you have this world's biggest collection right in your fingertips,
Yep.
right? So
And when I went to London, and they have a good plethora of record shops, and as well as Berlin just as well. They have a good plethora of record shops where they actually have electronic music.
yeah,
And around here, at least here on the East Coast, there's not, I feel, not too many record shops that have physical records of what we like.
Mm-mm.
It's like nobody has that that old Apex Twin. If they do, they have like
you
one
would
copy.
really have to
what
go
I mean?
like I think maybe if you go to New York and that too, like find a specific place. It's not like something that's readily available.
Right, and that's what's kind of sad. I feel, at least for right now in the scene, it's like we don't have those physical kind of like vinyl records.
Yeah.
But it's kind of understandable because we can go on Discogs or we
can get them.
Beatport.
Exactly. You can order them from there.
Yeah, and you know what's funny too? I was discussing this on another podcast. I was in London. I was where was that? No, I think it was either way. I was at a record store. And overseas, and I was going through all these records, and I had like a stack of records in my hand, and I was walking up to the counter, and I'm like, yo, I can get every single one of these records on Beatport and not have to carry all this shit. And as tempting as it was just to have the vinyl in your hand and the smell of it, it's so cool. But it's just like,
it's a colcollectible. Like,
man, I could just get this on a hard drive and maybe even pay less. I'm like, it's I don't want to say.
It's a different feeling. Like, if you have, do you have a player?
It's feel. No, I don't have a player. That's another thing too.
So that's the thing. The feel is one thing. Now imagine if you had a player where you could go home and like lift that needle over there and put it on there and then like just see it. Come on.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different thrill, man.
Yeah. Different thrill. And and that's more reliant on skill.
Yeah.
Just as well.
Yeah.
And if you can play vinyl, you have that skill going to other kind of like you can if you know vinyl, then you can do CDJs. If you know vinyl, you can do controller. It kind of lends itself to that because it's inherently so basic.
Yeah.
And the basics are kind of like what we lose sometimes in the heat of the moment. It's like, I need to put in all these sounds into this one track or to this one melody.
Yeah.
To where I'm performing, and it sounds great, but it's like sometimes it's just like keeping it simple is kind of like it's harmony.
There's it's a fine line, right? Like there's proponents and opponents of this whole thing, right? Old school versus like this new digital age. We have possibilities now, with this whole being able to sync and all that stuff, right? If you're a lazy DJ, then you just sync it and you just go on. But if you have to use that to expand, your creative potential when you're DJing.
Exactly.
Right? So say, for example, you can sync 4 records, right?
Yeah.
Right? And do something crazy with that mix, right? Where you don't have to worry about keeping them in time, right? But if you do something weird and, you create something new, then there's nothing wrong with that because you've taken that technology and used it to its maximum potential.
Right.
You just haven't used it to mix just 2 records because you're lazy to like beat
right.
match and all that
You're
stuff.
finding techniques within the machines that we use to elevate yourself as a DJ. Just starting out, and using the sync capabilities is just fine. If you're just starting out, and that's fine because you're learning that kind of technique and what the technology can do for you. For a little bit, scrolling through files of a CDJ and like looking for a key and looking for a certain playlist, that took time.
Yeah.
And sometimes, having that sync button and or having all these kind of aids is, helps you out, just starting out, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And sometimes even when sometimes even when there's a lot going on, the sync button basically what I'm trying to say as I'm rambling on, it's like having the sync button is useful, and having all these aids is useful.
Yeah, we use it, but don't use it just like lazily.
Yeah.
Use it creatively.
Yeah.
You know, just it's there for a reason. Don't be lazy and abuse it. Just figure out what you can do. You have to ask yourself, what can you do? What could you have tried to do when it was just vinyl that you couldn't because it was just vinyl, right? And do it now because it's available.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
And having all that technology is super cool.
Yeah.
This is one I think. Did you go to the DJ Expo recently? It wasn't recently. I think it was like September.
No, I haven't. That's been like a goal of mine or destination to go, but no, I haven't.
Gotcha. It's cool. It's like
you see all the new gadgets.
Oh, the
and
new
all
gadgets
that stuff.
and shit. But it's like that's cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's like really. If you've gone there more than once, it's like at that point, it's like having all that new kind of tech and getting deals on all this DJ equipment is cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's more like about like networking, catching up with people that you haven't seen in a while.
Yeah,
because everybody kind of culminates in Jersey for the DJ Expo when it happens in Atlantic City. Yeah, it's cool, but Atlantic City is not what it used to be.
No,
in its heyday.
That has changed on its own, but. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's.
But I think it's kind of inevitable.
It's kind of like Toyland, for
yeah.
You get to see stuff for like that you wouldn't otherwise, or like you maybe you have something in your head that you want to do, and you're trying to figure out a way to do it, but that piece of gear just doesn't exist yet, and somebody has just like put it out that year.
Yep.
So yeah.
Or even just like maybe if you're a beach dude, like I don't like going to the beach, but it's like if you want to go to the shore, go ahead. And you want to walk along the boardwalk, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not really a beach kind of dude though. I don't like the sand in my feet really on a hot day. Oh
yeah. I love it. Just anywhere like as long as I'm next to close to the water.
Yeah.
No, I'm like properly comfortable.
Gotcha.
With that.
For me, it's more like if I'm like in the mountains, kind of.
Yeah, I mean that too.
Mountain man.
That too. It's not.
It's
not one or the other. I'll take both of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I'd rather take a nice shower, rather than be in the cold ass water.
Yeah. Well, no. If it's cold, that's different. It should not like cold.
Gotcha.
It has to be like warm.
Gotcha. I do respect surfers though. Whoever that go out and paddle.
Yeah.
Paddle out. X amount of yards out just to get that wave. I always respect that.
Yeah.
So did my dad, and watching Point Break with the watching Point Break a couple times is really drilled into my head. That's cool. But anyway, I think we're getting drawn to the end. Do you have any tattoos?
I just have one tattoo. It's an Om tattoo.
Okay.
I don't know if you know what Om is, but it's like you probably saw it like if you went to like a yoga session or something. It's like the Hindu symbol of.
Gotcha. I need to get more into yoga. I'm so rigid because of cycling. Because like inherently with cycling, you put down the power in a certain kind of like position.
Are you getting like your knees affected somehow?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
I'm feeling that. I'm like, why? There's no impact there, but apparently because you tighten up your quad so much.
Yeah. But also though, when I go out to the Barbary, especially during the Shameless, like I got my little on the second floor, they have that little like dance kind of area. I dance my fucking ass off. And like to the point where I take off my shirt and it's like
I saw that last time.
It becomes like a fucking show. But the next day I'm like fuck, because it's like your knees are hurting because I'm putting all this pressure outwardly.
Right.
And so my knees are kind of when I'm in the moment, it's like I'm doing all these kind of sporadic movements with my knees, and it's like I'm putting all this force outwardly towards my knees, and I'm aware of that, and I can feel the next day. But it's like, last time I was at Shameless, I instead of dancing upstairs, I went downstairs with Gina.
Yeah.
She was playing dark wave, and it was cool shit.
Right.
But I noticed with the dark wave stuff, the tempo and the BPM is slower.
Yeah.
So I can be not as intense, but still kind of like get the rush of like dancing in front of people. Being in the moment. You're like without a cell phone or just focusing on the music. And that's super cool. But I'm noticing that just as well. Sometimes even with cycling, That's gonna be with me till like to the day I die with cycling.
Just
Forever.
I mean, it's just one of those things it's with you until you get, you're done with it.
Yeah, but I've always thought about getting a tattoo, but I'm still kind of like on that edge of like getting one, kind of sort of, because my thing with tattoos, it's like like I would want to share like what that represents with somebody, like if I have.
Well, that's why I got this one, and then it's the only one.
Gotcha. Well, with me, it's like, well, that's good. That's the only one, I guess. But it's like sometimes like I want to put myself out there.
Yeah.
And I feel with clothing, that's kind of like a better statement to a degree, because you can.
Oh yeah.
You can change. You can put different kind of outfits on.
Yeah.
And kind of like express yourself that way. Yeah. Even though Halloween's right around the corner.
Yeah.
And I don't really like Halloween, because it's like, it's you're trying to make this costume that's very creative, but it's like you're only going to use it one time. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's a waste of time, because it's fun.
It's fun in its own way, but I don't know. It's just too much work.
Yeah, I know.
Me,
I know. I'd rather spend that time on like a track.
Yeah.
Or like just doing something else, really. Yeah. To a degree.
Well, if you get back on that whole producing track, the one thing you'll learn is like every time is just so important, because you can there's just not enough time. And I know that's true for everything, really, but this one, I think it's more so, because you can spend hours and hours behind just something so minuscule, something so small, but you have to get it right.
Yep.
So you're always calculating. You're like, where can I take time off? I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do groceries. You know what? I'm just gonna order in. I'm not gonna make food. That'll give me like at least 1.5 hours to work more. Right. So your mind starts going in that direction. Yeah. So when you say, okay, let's put together Halloween costume, it's probably gonna take you, I don't know, a lot of time. Yeah. And like, no, I think I could have come up with at least 2 or 3 ideas for like new tracks.
Exactly. And if you really want to do it, you just go to like fucking Parties R Us or like the Halloween outlet or whatever, and just grab a cheesy kind of outfit or whatever.
Yeah. But having said that, some people do, they put in the time, and
like, it definitely shows. Definitely, it's like overkill. You have to give them kudos. You should have been like an extra like fucking Universal Studios or some shit. You're like, damn, man,
they're so creative. I think you posted one today somewhere, right? The guy had like a credit card or something like that.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. I posted up on Philly Fam. Yeah. Where this guy was. That seems simple though, because like he was. It looks like something you can. It looks like an outfit you can kind of purchase at Staples and kind of like make it as you go.
But the idea behind it, right?
Yeah, the idea behind it was genius.
Yeah, because
I think it's inherently simple. But when you see like all these like people dressing as, I don't know, like Halo, or people dressing as like this elaborate costumes, it's like, geez, it took a month for you to do that. And it's like, that's all you did. It's like, yo, that's cool, and I appreciate that shit, but it's like, I'm only going to be appreciative like for that one day, as opposed to a track where it can last forever, potentially. Forever.
Yeah. So you start equating things a lot, at least I do. So I don't know. People have priorities, Yeah. Just stick with what yours are, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have any shout-outs, promotions, anything like that going on? Do you perform anywhere, man? You got any shout-outs, plugins, whatever?
No, just shout-outs definitely to Philly Fam. The group of people, that I met, you included, everybody, just like, the coolest people that I've come across ever since I moved to Philly. Very like-minded, musically, and just like, people who end up becoming good friends. So definitely grateful for that. And I'm not gonna like name each one, like they know,
Yeah, it's a long list.
It's a long list, In terms of performance, we're definitely like we're looking towards getting the whole progressive sound going here in Philly in 2020. And I think Alex and shout out to Alex
with Voyage,
and Jonathan and them, like, and I think Carlos and Ashley were involved with that too. So shout out to those guys for getting that, the ball rolling on that. So that's just one of many parties, and I think 2020 we can start adding more, where hopefully I'll be playing, and anyone else in that space, put out as many tracks as possible.
I tell you what, like, as cool as techno is, it's becoming more brittle to the point where it's coming like too hard.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like 140 BPM techno.
Oh,
you know,
no,
it's like
that's
how
the
long
one.
how long can you last? You know, kind of sort of. So it's like
Yeah.
having those vocals and having those like
Yeah.
very complex yet dreamy melodies is very
Yeah.
cool, and something you know
Yeah.
that's and something that's like kind of I
Let
don't
it set you up for the rest of the
yeah,
night in a way.
yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like it sets you up for the rest of the night and what potentially what can be. And
Yeah.
even if it's not something harder, it puts you in that kind of mind space to where you can kind
Oh,
of like
yeah.
drift off and be in your own
In your
kind of comfy
own-
zone,
Yeah.
you know, with
yeah.
others potentially.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mr. Patel, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Thank you
Yeah.
for spending your time with me for real. Like, share, subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, whoever happens to be listening now. You can find this podcast on YouTube. You can find this podcast on my SoundCloud at DJ Xclude. What's your Instagram, by the way?
So I'm just Facebook is the only social media
Just
I'm doing
Facebook.
right
There
now.
you go. Keep
Yeah.
it simple. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just look up my Mayank 102 and you'll find me.
There you go. And I'll
And-
also put your Beatport page out there.
Beatport
You know,
and SoundCloud is
yep.
the main
Give
one.
it a
Yeah.
listen for just as well, and check out his SoundCloud. And if you like progressive house, or even if you're just getting into electronic music and happen to be local within the Philadelphia area, check this dude out. He's doing great things. I'm glad to have him on the show. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Again, like, share, subscribe, all that good shit. I'm starting to really push that shit because everybody else is doing it, and hopefully with this podcast, I'll learn a thing or two as you know further episodes are further put out there. But that's as time goes by. I'm just doing this thing, and see how far it takes me. You know, I'm
Very
in
nice.
it for the
Keep at
ride.
it.
It's giving it back to the community as they gave it back to me. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 14 of Include Xclude, and I think we're signing off there. Peace. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.